those students fifth grade so that they can continue that in their elementary school. Our children also need that with the current schools that they're in right now. They're excelling at these schools. And I'm sorry, my voice is out, so I'm sorry if it's shaking. But they're excelling at these schools. And we just ask on behalf of Purpose Prep, we've met with Rocket Ship and other charters as well. We really just want you guys to stand with us and add fifth grade there so that they don't have to transfer to another elementary school and then to middle school after that. Allow them to stay for that additional year so that they can have an easy transition into sixth grade after. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Mary French. Mary French. Paula Pendergrass. Joshua Long. Oh.
Dr. Pendergrass is teaching a graduate class tonight, so I'll be reading her speech on her behalf. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Battle. My name is Paula Pendergrass, and I'm the current Vice President of M&EA. Back in August, I stood before you and expressed my sincere gratitude for the collaboration between the members of management and M&EA in completing the Memorandum of Understanding. Today, I stand before you concerned that several sections of the MOU are not in compliance. For example, it says all professional employees shall be present at their respective schools 7.5 hours each day students are in the school. Unfortunately, teachers are logging 20 to 45 minutes each day beyond the required 7.5 hours to supervise students due to a lack of bus drivers. That computes to 1 to 3 unpaid hours per week, approximately 3 to 10 extra work days per year. According to the MOU, all professional employees shall have daily planning time, which shall be free of student responsibilities except for emergencies. However, we are constantly receiving calls regarding the violation of planning time due to the shortage of bus drivers and substitute teachers. When teachers don't have planning, they're forced to spend time outside their contracted hours for planning and preparing lessons. Management might use the argument that teachers are helping because we're in a state of an emergency. At this point in the school year, this is no longer an unexpected emergency. The district has had ample time to brainstorm possible solutions. The MOU states professional employees authorized to use personal automobiles in performance of their duties shall be provided reimbursement consistent with Board Procedure 2.807.804.1. Nevertheless, we have school counselors who are conducting home visits with no reimbursement of mileage being offered. MNPS and M&EA agreed to establish and maintain a teacher retention committee consisting of stakeholders. According to the MOU, the committee should have convened no later than September 15th. As of today, November 9th, the committee has not been formed, although M&EA's officers brought it to the attention of management when they were meeting weekly. Despite changes to these meetings, we still have not met regarding the formation of this committee. It takes a true partnership to solve issues and concerns. As a representative of M&EA, I am open to meeting as often as necessary to share possible solutions to the concerns I have mentioned today because we have a responsibility to adhere to the MOU. Thank you, Madam Chair, Board members, and Dr. Battle for the opportunity to share.
Thank you. Joshua Long.
Hello. So I thought I would address the board with a simple question, explain my reasoning for asking it, being at a crossroads in my own personal life and not knowing what to do next in my career. I thought it might be helpful for other teachers who might find themselves in a similar situation to express my feelings honestly in a public forum. How can I advance my teaching career without leaving the classroom? The answer is I can't. I could go back to school, get my master's in education, for a raise that it would take several years to acquire and compensate myself for the expense of going back to school. I could leave the classroom for an administrative position with the advanced degree to cover those expenses faster, but that's leaving the classroom. So I have heard of some programs that allow experienced teachers to mentor alongside new teachers, sacrificing one of their own classes to coordinate and mentor for a modest raise and increase responsibilities in an already overwhelming job. That sounds like a good idea, but over the long term, would a teacher ever be able to accumulate a significant amount of wealth to accomplish some personal goals, such as having a home paid for before it's almost time to retire, or living completely debt-free financial existence. The truth is, those are unreasonable expectations if you believe your purpose is being just a classroom teacher, and would be even more so unreasonable if I had a wife and young children. So you have to leave the classroom to some extent and therefore have less direct interaction and personal impact on the students whom it is supposedly our mission to serve, if you want to grow professionally in public education. Thank you.
Thank you. Cassie Norton.
Hello, my name is Cassie Norton. I live at Airwood Drive in 37214, and I teach at McGavock High School. And today during PLT, I asked my students, what do you want the Board of Education to know about what is happening in McGavock High School right now? And I'm gonna read our list to you all. It starts off with some pretty normal teenager complaints. The food is bad, so we're hungry. The Wi-Fi is always out, our computers are old. Teenagers, you know. And then it picks up into things that are really having an effect on their education and safety and mental health. The buses are always late. I'm missing all of first block at least once a week. I'm sitting 3 to a seat or on the floor. I'm begging my fourth block teacher to let me out early so I can get a seat on the bus. Our teachers are quitting, or they're constantly not here because they're burnt out, and so they're taking days off a lot. The teachers know, the students know, they see us and they know that we're burnt out. They know that that's happening. And there's no subs, so there's no one to cover their classes. They're getting merged, or someone else is being pulled into the room to cover and is not happy to be there because they have work to do. The classes are too big. They're crammed together in a pandemic and without enough adults. And they're not exactly happy with the quality of our teachers. They're worried that a lot of teachers have biases that aren't being addressed. They're worried that their teachers don't have any training to help them with their mental health or with trauma or with everything that we're all going through right now. They're worried that there aren't enough mental health supports for students in place. They are upset about all of the fighting because a lot of students are really struggling. They're constantly in their fight or flight, and we're seeing that reflected in the building, and we're constantly dealing with this. There's just not enough time to support students. They're looking for more safety, more anger management, more therapy, more social workers. They really want those things in our building. I found out today that for all of the students we have at our school, we have 2 part-time social workers, and that kind of blew my mind a little bit. They're upset that we're acting like the pandemic is over. They feel like the district is no longer being understanding, that they're in trouble constantly, that teachers are in trouble constantly, that there's just so much pressure on everyone, that the flexibility and understanding we got last year is gone. They feel like there's no one that cares that they're struggling. And they're upset that their classmates and teachers are not wearing masks. I don't know if y'all know that, but COVID safety is not really being followed in our schools anymore. And then finally, the last one, they're upset that our building is not on the docket for renovations because it leaks when it rains and there are cockroaches coming out of the ceiling. All this to say that our students see what is happening and they see these problems and they don't have any solutions, and they shouldn't because they're children. And I know that you all can't solve all of these problems and not very quickly, but you can take steps and you can do things like hire more subs, pay our support staff and our teachers more, pay our bus drivers more. Please be there for us. Also, if you ever want to come shadow at McGavock.
Thank you. Brad Rayson.
Good evening, Chair Buggs, members of the board, Dr. Battle. I'm Brad Rayson. I'm with SEIU Local 205. Support employees are members of our union. I want to start by saying we value the relationship and partnership we have with you. We've made some significant gains over the last 3-4 years. We have $15 as our minimum wage. We've added days on calendar on payroll for some of our support employees. And step increases are now a part of your basic budget, not an afterthought or an add-on afterwards. But that doesn't mean there isn't work to do now and work to do in the future. Right now, this evening, you've heard about the challenges that bus drivers, teachers, support employees are facing every day. You've heard from our members this evening and from teachers about staff shortages and what that means, the additional work and burden it puts on the staff that are here. You've heard about the need for additional compensation to recognize the extra contributions and duties that workers are picking up. You've heard about safety concerns. These conditions have a physical and emotional impact on staff. They affect morale. They affect students. We understand that recruiting new employees right now is challenging for a lot of places, but not impossible. But what is possible is doing everything we can to respect and honor and keep the employees that we do have here. We're ready to roll up our sleeves and sit around the table and come up with solutions to these issues. And we're ready to do it together with you. Now let's talk about the future. Back in 2019, the board outlined a plan to evaluate pay. And there was a slide in the presentation that I went back and looked at today, and it was called People Matter. And it says, in order to deliver a great public education to every student every day, our compensation strategy must attract and sustain the talent necessary to provide exemplary levels of service. What does that mean for a support employee? It means being able to live in the city where you work. It means you can support yourself and your family and not have to work multiple jobs or scrimp and save just to make ends meet. It means being able to save for your kids' education and your retirement. It means that there's pay equity in our district. We have a chance this year to make sure that our compensation will attract and sustain the talented support and staff our community needs and deserves. There's going to be a pay study this year. It's long overdue. And we're willing to do our part, and we're ready to make sure that whatever that study shows and how much it costs, we'll help you get it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dahari Matthews. Okay. Corey Richardson.
Good evening. My name is Corey Richardson. I live in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. First off, I want to say I should have vetted my wife a little harder when we first met because you guys are familiar with Edward Kendall. He's my grandfather-in-law, married his granddaughter. So let me make sure I make him proud up here tonight. So I represent Smithson Craighead Academy. I am a staff member there. I've been there this is my 8th year now. And one thing I can take from everything that I've heard tonight is that no one is quitting on you. I've heard despair in our teachers' voices. I've heard a plea for help, even in our parents as well. And that's why I'm here as not only a staff member, but a parent as well. My son does attend Smithson Craighead Academy, and I'm here to ensure or implore why I believe that charters need to be included in the Reimagine Ed initiative. When I go to work every day, I don't feel like I'm at work. I truly feel as if I'm there to make a difference. My students, as you see, the illustrious Valerie Garcia came here. She's been here since kindergarten, and love her to death. I watched Evan be in vitro, and I was able to see him now. He's 4 already in pre-K. Being able to see, and that's just a microcosm of the growth I've been allowed to see. Not only in our students, but our staff as well, how they are motivated every day to come in, how they push. And I am very grateful after hearing some of the things that a lot of schools and educators are going through. I'm grateful, and I'm also empathetic towards their plights. I feel like my school and my experience lends itself for me to be a second home, not in a negative light. I did not attend college to become an educator. I was in the business field. I've been in a school. I'm only 33. I've been in the school for over half my life, if you include the 8 years that I've been there. And that's simply because we are called. We are called. We are called to raise a generation, to influence a generation. And I've been able to do that, and I would like to continue that. I'm 6'3", about 280, and I turn into a soft little teddy bear when the 4th graders graduate. I think the difference between that is
Thank you. Tremaine Hamer.
Hello, y'all. Y'all pretty much know who I am, so I'm going to skip everything else. But before I do, earlier today I heard that CRT was evil. And for somebody who was called the N-word at third grade, it should let everybody know that color is seen before anything else. So CRT isn't evil, it's necessary. I am the proud parent of a Purpose Prep alumni and a Purpose Prep scholar. But you already know that, because 2 years ago, I was here in request of the same thing, an extension. 2 years ago, I told you about my son, who is now 14 years old, 6'3", had plans on attending a private school, but he's more excited about the STEM program than he is the athletic program. Purpose Prep did that. I told you about my son, who is on the spectrum of autism. Doctors gave him no chance of leading a normal life. And now he's on the pathway of living an independent life. Purpose Prep did that. I'll tell you about myself, who come from North Nashville during the time where there's the highest incarceration rate in the nation. I grew up through that. I've been through that. One of the most scariest moments of my life wasn't worrying about getting robbed. It wasn't worrying about if I'm going to eat the next day. It was worrying about where my son is going to go for school. Purpose Prep helped ease that. Purpose Prep also opened up the door to allow me to become an advocate. Not just a charter school advocate, but I advocate for district school parents. I advocate for homeschool parents. I advocate for private school parents, because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to help one another out. No matter where our children go to, they're still our children. I say all that to say this. 2 years ago, I gave you the story, and I'm still here asking for the same thing now. So what I'm going to ask of you is to make this decision with open hearts, open minds. Stop playing politics with my children. Stop this, to eloquently put it, stop this dog and pony show, charter versus district. Stop this political grandstanding. We're all parents. Purpose Prep deserve to have fifth grade. 8 years ago, Legra Newman and her staff knocked on the doors of North Nashville, promising a change of education. That changes now.
Thank you. Kiana Page.
Hello. Good evening. My name is Kiana Page. I live at 3711 Dickerson Pike, apartment B217 in Nashville, 37207. I have a 7-year-old I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous, y'all. Let me start over. Okay. I have a 7-year-old in second grade at Rocket Ship and a 6th grader who completed elementary through Rocket Ship. Rocket Ship has supported the development of both of my children, helping them to grow into young men. The community there is loving and supportive. It feels like a small family. I'm actually proud to say I'm a Rocket Ship parent. My youngest has struggled with behavior issues, but the staff at Rocket Ship has showed so much dedication and compassion for him, even when he has hard days. I am asking you to support the expansion to 5th grade at Rocket Ship so that my son can grow in this loving community for another year before he transitions to middle school. It is very important to me that my son is not thrown into a setting where he could be easily influenced by the behavior of older students. History has shown what happens to little black boys when they are not properly prepared for the world that is ahead of them. My son has benefited from the individual approach that Rocket Ship uses for each child. And I am confident that spending his 5th grade year in this elementary school, Rocket Ship, Rocket Ship that has shown so much growth and gave him so much advantage of him being himself. My son needs the extra social and behavioral support that Rocket Ship offers him. So please support our charter school, and please support my son, and vote yes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ahmed White. Ahmed White. Christian Sanchez.
Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Cristian Sánchez y vengo aquí a pedir una petición para Smithson Clark Academy.
Good evening. My name is Christian Sanchez, and I am a constituent here and a proud parent. I'm here to ask in favor of Smithson Clark Academy for the charter amendment.
Soy madre de 2 niñas. Las 2 niñas han ido a esa misma escuela. Una está en 4º grado, la otra está en middle school.
I am the mother of 2 girls, and both of them have attended that school. One of them is in 4th grade now, and the other one's in middle school.
La escuela es una excelente escuela. Uno se siente con los maestros como si fuesen familia de nuestros hijos.
The school is excellent, and I feel with the teachers as if I were there with my family.
Los niños se sienten a gusto, están bien cuidados.
The kids are happy and well taken care of.
Los maestros, el personal son excelentes, muy profesionales.
The teachers and the staff, they're excellent, they're very professional.
Mi hija ha tenido la dicha de ir de ahí desde que va a kindergarten.
My daughter has been lucky to attend there since kindergarten.
Y deseamos que el 5º grado se abra para que nuestros hijos puedan estar seguros, cómodos en la escuela.
And we wish to have access to 5th grade so that my students, my kids can have access to remaining there and be safe in that school.
Espero que nos den la oportunidad de dar el 5º grado a la escuela.
And we hope that you give us the opportunity to have 5th grade in our campus.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trudy Campbell.
Good evening, and thank you again for this opportunity to come before you and speak on behalf of Purpose Prep Academy. My name is Trudy Campbell. I am a native of Nashville, Tennessee, and a very proud parent of 2 boys that I must anxiously get home because they attend Purpose Prep and they got work to do. Well, excuse me, my oldest son goes to MLK, but to that in a moment. I'm aware that Purpose Prep, that MNPS has expanded elementary school in the Procon cluster to include 5th grade. As a parent, I want the same opportunity to be granted at Purpose Prep for the continuation of the academic progress and social development for those students there at that school. Serving 5th grade students is critically important, not only for Purpose Prep, but the other schools, the charter schools that are represented here. But because I have a vested interest in Purpose Prep, that's why I'm here. It's critically important to my child's success and the other scholars there at Purpose Prep as well. I've seen and value their work and the results that I've gained with my children attending the school. My oldest is a Purpose Prep Academy graduate. He attended HEAD and now is currently a 7th grader at MLK. I contribute that to the foundation he gained at Purpose Prep Academy. My sons have excelled through their literacy, expanded vocabulary, mathematical skill set, science, social studies, and also attended a school that is now a part of history. Their character and social development has been molded there. During the pandemic, they pivoted, still meeting their academic standards with the necessary tools. I believe in the work that they do there at Purpose Prep. I believe in their results. I've seen it firsthand, and I see their vision. I want you to know that I support Purpose Prep and expanding to serve the 5th grade. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Laura Neal.
Good evening. Board members, Dr. Battle, Chair. Some of you, it's good to see you in person. We've met recently. So my name is Laura Neal. I live at 112 Creasy Court in Jolton. I am a parent and educator at Smithson Craighead Academy. When I went to choose a school for my child, my main priority was choosing a school that the focus would be on the whole child. Balance between rigor and social emotional growth. I can stand before you and say that SCA is a family. We're a family-focused school, small classroom ratios, always academically focused, but they never forget the individual needs of the child that is there. Consistently serving families and the community, not just the families that are at our school, but the families that are in the community that surrounds us. We have so many initiatives with diaper giveaways, food giveaways during the pandemic. We believe it's bigger than just us and ours. As we approach 4th grade, I am a nervous parent. I know that my daughter Annabelle's needs are going to be best met staying in the school community that she's familiar with. Developmentally, scientifically, we all know, right? They need that extra time to mature, to grow. That the gap, guys, the gap that is between a 9-year-old, right, and an 8th grader, that's not healthy. That doesn't serve the needs of any child in this district, regardless of the school that they go to. That isn't even up for debate, right? MNPS is called to be equitable, to serve all children in the district, regardless of the school that they're enrolled at. I am calling SCA parents, I believe all charter parents here, we are calling for you to include charters in the Reimagine Ed, to approve our charter amendments, and basically just equity. That's all we want. We don't want more. We want the same. We want what you are offering every child in the district to be equitable across the board. I'm also going to say Mr. Ami Dwight sends his regards. He had a family commitment. His son, Cameron, had an awards banquet tonight. That was very important for him to be here. He has entrusted each of us to come and share and speak on his behalf, knowing that we would represent the spirit of SCA well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jahari Matthews.
Hello, my name is Jahari Matthews, and I reside at 2809 Red Clover Court, Nashville, Tennessee. And I just want to add in that I have raced across the city to make it here just in time because this topic is so important to me. I am here today to advocate on behalf of Purpose Preparatory Academy. As a parent of a 2nd grade scholar, and a product of Metro Nashville Public Schools. As a parent, my child's education is a top priority, and finding a community that supports his growth as a student and individual is of the utmost importance to me and my husband, his father. The addition of 5th grade at Purpose Prep would allow my child to remain within a community that allows him to thrive. I fully appreciate that this opportunity has been given to other schools and families in the North Nashville area, but I ask that you seriously consider extending this opportunity to the families of Purpose Prep. The addition of fifth grade at Purpose would allow many of our families to continue on a journey that speaks to the overall positive educational experience that so many of us have started on. And as parents, we do not want that to end prematurely if it does not have to. It is evident that the board and MNPS recognizes the importance of having fifth grade in an elementary setting, and it is only appropriate for Purpose Prep scholars to have that same benefit. All children, regardless of the school that they attend, should have the same equitable education standards made available to them, and I just ask that you please consider approving the addition of fifth grade to Purpose Preparatory Academy to support current and future scholars. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Matthews. And with that, we conclude public participation. Thank you all for engaging with us. Again, if you were not able to finish your sentiments, or if you have additional concerns, questions, or ideas, please feel free to call or email us. With that, we will move on to governance issues. Do I have an amendment to this as listed, or go ahead, Mrs. Pupa-Walker?
I'd like to pull A1E, policy 4.300 off of the consent agenda.
You said 4.301 interscholastic athletics?
Second. Which one is it? Am I saying the wrong one?
Yes.
1E. Or one,
1E, but is it 4.30?
which policy in E?
Which number policy?
It's
4.301 interscholastic athletics, all right?
Yeah.
Do we have any other amendments that has been pulled? Mrs. Tyler and then Mrs. Pupa-Walker, Mrs. Player-Peters?
I'd like to pull the 2022-23 district calendar.
Okay, that's 1C. All right, Mrs. Player-Peters? All right, so the consent agenda has been amended to pull off both C and E 4.301. Do I have a motion to accept it as amended?
I move approval of the consent agenda as amended.
Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. Passes unanimously. We'll move on and begin with listed order, the 2022-23 school calendar. Mrs. Tyler or Mrs. Player-Peters? Flip a coin.
My biggest question is, I'm looking at their beginning dates in August.
Point of order. Is there a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, the motion.
A motion's not necessary for pulling something off the
we can just
consent
move for
agenda.
We do have a motion that wants to be made. Go ahead, Mrs. Player-Peters.
I make a motion to defer the 22-23 calendar one meeting.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, go ahead with comments or questions or discussion.
Go ahead, you made a motion.
I had a discussion, the employee groups want to meet with the appropriate staff to work out some questions, just do a scheduling conflict or a scheduling mishap. For that, so I like to defer one meeting so they can have discussion regarding some of the concerns they have with the calendar.
Dr. Battle, did you have a?
Could you repeat that, Ms. Player-Peters?
So I've heard from the employee groups, and they would like to meet with the appropriate staff about some of the questions they have about the calendar. And so I just want to leave that opportunity time, so defer one meeting for that to happen.
Thank you.
I believe it was last week, we did have a meeting that involved Dr. Whitty, myself, and SEIU representatives to talk through the calendar and compensation concerns and benefits concerns. So we have answered those questions already.
So my understanding is that there was a conflict originally when the stakeholders met to review the calendar. Of course, this is a pretty lengthy process with all stakeholders involved, and the follow-up meeting has already been scheduled and has already been completed with those who had a conflict. So I just want to clarify that meeting has already been held with those stakeholder groups.
Can we hear from the employee representatives of?
I think that might be better for them to advocate to us individually. I mean, that can be part of the deferment, but, all right, Mrs. Tyler?
I guess I had some similar concerns as Ms. Player-Peters. But then also, I was just looking at some of the ways things fall. Like, I'm looking at when students start and they start on Monday for a full day, and they go to school for their full week, for the first full week. And we all know that that can be really difficult. So I would just love to get some clarification, if I could, from somebody about why we chose to start school full day Monday and just roar right in without any time to ease everybody in a little bit, like as we've done in years past.
I'm happy to have Dr. Whitty approach the podium, who leads the school calendar committee. I think it's safe for me to say that there's always lots of wants and desires around the calendar, but there are competing demands with regards to balancing out the calendar, pay schedules, what's allowable under state law, so on and so forth. But Dr. Whitty, if you could address particularly the start of the school year dates.
Yes, Dr. James Whitty, Executive Director of Schools for High School, and also leading this work. One of the things that we have discussed in years is kind of that phased-in approach, but it has been kind of a challenge because we have discovered when we start with a full week, it gives us an opportunity to work out all of the logisticals from nutrition services to transportation to schedules to things such as that. So we have had those debates over the past 3 years, but we've always kind of landed back with starting that first full week because of those reasons. It really does allow us to get the operational side of things situated and students to start off strong. We also have built in, I think 3 years ago, some half days for our pre-K and kindergarten students as well, because we also understand and realize for our younger students that that's their first experience and we want them to have some of that opportunity to phase in. So we've tried to balance that with some other kind of approaches over the past 3 years, trying to honor that. So it is a delicate balance.
Could you also just recap for the board who all is included in the conversations around the calendar?
Absolutely. So the calendar, there is a TCA, that specifies who's on that committee. It's made up of pretty much all stakeholders. We have principals, teachers, parents. We've had some student representatives, folks from the board, the support organizations were a part of that, as well as M&EA. So really just a collaborative, large group of around 50 people that really kind of take a lot of time to look at what's possible within the guidance that we've been given from the Tennessee Department of Ed.
Thank you, Dr. Whitty.
Any further questions, discussion around the calendar? All right, we have a motion to defer to the next meeting. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, so I asked some questions about this before the meeting, and I was told about all the different groups and that there were 3 months of meetings before coming to agreement on the draft, and I guess I just want to know how many meetings were there with all of these different groups, and what was the method of them being allowed input? Was it sort of a democratic process, or was it just sort of a like throw out what your thoughts are kind of thing?
Yeah, so this is actually the 3rd year that I've gotten to organize this work, and we've learned what works and what doesn't work. So year 1, we went total democratic. What do you want? And that was very challenging because everybody wants competing things. Last year, we shared 2 different calendars and kind of got feedback from the entire committee based on a modified Thanksgiving break. And the committee was very clear that they like the traditional fall break. So this year we started with an actual calendar, had a committee, shared that out so that the entire committee would have an opportunity to actually review it and come to that meeting with questions because we want to honor their time. And then part of that meeting is facilitated. So we present all of the state and school board policy around the requirements so that there's a level of understanding of what we can and can't do when developing the calendar. And then after that, we have stakeholder groups. It's actually a part of our facilitated discussion where we're asking parents, students, teachers, and stopping to make sure that every constituency or group is actually acknowledged and has an opportunity to share. So we take down all of those ideas and feedback that we get. And then we take that back to the table, and we updated the calendar and then shared back out once again with the calendar committee. This is what you asked for. Here are your 4 major recommendations. Here's why we made a change, or here's why we couldn't make a change with a very specific rationale. To be clear, just so that they understand, what was possible and what wasn't. And then we also followed up with connecting with our M&EA partners, as well as meeting with the support organizations this week, because there are underlying implications around the calendar that don't necessarily, the calendar has a lot of implications. So there's other factors that sometimes we have to work through and think through logistically when doing this.
So how many times did the core calendar committee meet?
Oh, the large committee? One large meeting and then one follow-up feedback session with that committee.
Was that feedback session also an actual meeting, or was that sort of just email feedback, or?
It was basically an emailed feedback with all of the different recommendations, and then followed up with them as well to say, if you have additional concerns, please let me know. We've pretty much kept an open dialogue with anyone who's had feedback.
Yeah, it's my understanding there was one 45-minute meeting. And I don't think that's probably adequate to actually receive the level of feedback and input that's necessary from all of the different groups across the district.
Dr. Whitty, could you clarify the larger meeting? How many subcommittee meetings did you all have? Did you have additional subcommittee meetings?
Absolutely. So there were probably 5 or 6 additional, meetings along the way. This was a larger meeting, and one of the good things is I've worked with this committee for the past 3 years, and we've really slowly developed, okay, these are the things to anticipate. These are the things that we have to make certain are in the calendar and work through on the front end. So we have tried to be really proactive too, with very specific things on the front end that we know are going to be challenges around the calendar.
So what was the thinking behind a full week, beginning with a full week, a full day, that entire week? I'm sorry, I don't think I understood that answer.
Sure, there's a lot of different things. So under TCA, we can have up to 3 half-days, but we also use those half-days very strategically at different points of the year. So it's challenging to use those to kind of phase in. The other thing that we've consistently heard over the past 3 years is the challenge, even from a lot of our leaders, on starting on a Thursday and Friday and then going directly into the weekend, because we're just kind of getting students into that school routine. We're adjusting schedules. We're getting kind of transportation issues worked out and nutrition services set up and ready. So just we've heard overwhelmingly over the past 3 years that it's much easier to start at the beginning of the week and get all of those kind of things ironed out instead of kind of cutting that half week.
And I think there's also some HR implications, because if you move back the first date of students, given where in-service starts, we will run back into the issues around the pay calendar that we have historically faced, particularly with our support employees. And that was something that was top priority for us last year, that we tried to work through to make sure that we had a balance in meeting our student needs, but also our staff needs.
And I just want to be clear, I am not commenting on the calendar. I would not even pretend that I would be able to come up with this calendar because so much goes into it. I'm really concerned with being sure that the process allowed for the level of necessary input from all of the different, principals and school leaders, since we do place such a high level of autonomy on each of our individual school leaders. I just want to be sure that they all really were able to give the level of input necessary to be sure that all the needs are being met.
Absolutely, I hope so, because the conversation was open the entire meeting. We didn't shut down the meeting until everybody was done kind of sharing. we've just done it a lot now the past 3 years, and a lot of the same players are there. And we really did spend a lot of time on the front end trying to anticipate what the hurdles would be, and sharing that as a part of the overall presentation. But again, we're always open for feedback.
Dr. Gentry?
Thank you, Dr.
I have a couple of questions. First for you, Madam Chair. Is the motion on the floor still to defer?
It is.
Okay. If we're going to defer, I know in the past, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the calendar has been separate because we've had a presentation on the process. Am I recalling that correctly? There's sort of been a summary when it has been presented. All of y'all are new. I'm really looking at Mr. Henson all the way back there. Am I correct? Yeah, so there's been a presentation that talked through the process. And I will remind us and echo Ms. Masters' comment. We do not have the capacity to create a calendar here at this table. But if it's just your desire to understand, may I ask that with this deferral at the next meeting, we just get a presentation on the process that got us the calendar that's being presented to us to vote on. And it has been said 1,000 times here, at least I've heard it 1,000 times, probably because it's bouncing off the walls and in my head, that no one is ever going to be 100% happy with the calendar. Okay, and there are always competing priorities. We want to be able to pay people for as many days as we possibly can. That is usually one of the major drivers in creating the calendars that are presented here. So if I would ask that we call for the question, and at the next meeting there is a presentation to fully understand the process and the timeline that got you to the calendar that you're presenting to us today.
All right, Dr. Battle, we can work through that unless you have a comment before we move on.
I do not.
All right, the question has been called. Thank you, Dr. Whitty. Could you restate your motion?
A motion to defer the calendar for one meeting.
All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. All right, unanimous. We'll move on to policy 4.301, interscholastic athletics. Mrs. Pufo-Walker.
Oh, no, I was just pulling it. Oh, sorry, we deferred.
Oh, yes.
We deferred it. Did I use the wrong?
No,
Okay. We're not discussing it tonight.
Right, so we're pulling 4.301. We had a committee meeting before this, so we're pulling this to just defer.
Yes.
Indefinitely. All right, so we'll tie that up. That's tied up in a bow. We'll move on now to Nashville Classical 2.
Wait a minute.
Yes, Ms. Tyler.
I'd like to make a motion on that if we're ready.
Oh, gotcha. There's nothing else.
Do it.
Mr. Whitaker, there's nothing else with 4.301, right? Since we deferred, okay. All right, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Tyler.
I make a motion to deny local authorization of Nashville Classical 2.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is that the problem?
Presentation from, do we have a presentation by the office, by the charter office? I mean, I know we're all here.
It's already approved.
This is just the one where they.
Yeah, this is just us.
This is just local authorization.
Okay, so for the viewing public, Nashville Classical 2, we're having a discussion about, they have been approved by the state, though they were denied by the board. We're now having discussion on who will maintain oversight, whether it's the state of Tennessee or Metro Nashville Public Schools Board. All right.
Yeah, and state law dictates that we have to vote within 30 days of the vote by the State Charter Commission, and today is day 28. So I would have loved to defer it to have a little bit more discussion around some of the changes they're asking for, but we do not have time. So with that being said, Nashville Classical has written a letter to all the board members claiming that they desire to partner with the district and that they intend to prove their willingness to be a good partner by belatedly addressing our initial concerns. The truth of the matter is, if Nashville Classical had intended to be a good partner with the district, they would have responded by taking our initial concerns seriously when they first brought their application before us. Their amended application to the board would have proposed a location change at that time instead of waiting until the very last minute today. Instead, they dismissed our concerns as unnecessary and went so far as to go over our heads to the Charter Commission to get what they wanted. Now that the very issues that we raised concerns over are manifesting, expensive renovations, lackluster community support, Nashville Classical is bringing it before us to correct. And this shows me that they don't have an intention of partnering with MNPS unless it's beneficial to them. So it's important to note that when Nashville Classical applied to open a second school, their application specifically listed 1051 Davidson Drive, Brookmead School. Their application was approved for that location by the Charter Commission. There were no contingencies or alternate locations written. I repeatedly raised concerns about the state of that building, noting that it was so full of asbestos that it was only safe for storage when MMPS sold it. In fact, Metro Police were told they were not allowed to use the space to run practice drills, even if they wore gas masks, because of the safety risk. No one was ever able to give me a satisfactory answer about how they would address those safety issues. I was just told that they would meet all code requirements before opening. Now, I've been told by supporters of Nashville Classical that the school wants to move to a different location as quickly as possible so they can stop sinking money into the Brookmead School. If Nashville Classical truly wants to open in a different location, based on the stringent process of charter approval, I am hesitant to support such a move because there are many unintended consequences of allowing a charter to apply with one location in mind, be vetted and approved after careful consideration of the impact on that community, only to turn around after they're approved and move to wherever else they want to go. Since fit with community is a consideration of the process, to try to switch communities this late in the game undermines the ability of our charter review team to appropriately vet every application. Due to the nature of the application process, it's my understanding that approval of the application is binding for everything in the application. If Nashville Classical wants to open somewhere else, then they can withdraw and cancel this contract and submit a brand new one at the next application process. However, the fact that they were not able to follow through on the details of their application would be problematic and would be a consideration during any future applications. Finally, I want to address the ramifications of voting to authorize a charter school forced on us by the state. If we add another charter school under our umbrella, we do not add another staff member to our charter school oversight team. So every time we have a charter school added, our staff gets stretched more and more thin. The amount of money that a charter would pay us to oversee them does not cover the amount of money and time that we put back out into them. It is a net negative proposition for MNPS. Additionally, contrary to what Mr. Friedman said during his speech, local control does not give us control over his curriculum or his discipline policies. The whole point of charter schools are that they are not subject to oversight by this elected board, but that they have the autonomy to make those decisions themselves and answer to their own independent board. So if I could take a minute to ask a question, Chairwoman.
Sure, of Dr. Battle?
Yes. What control does MNPS actually have over the charter schools that we oversee?
You feel comfortable?
I'm going to ask for our legal team actually to respond to that. So if John or Melissa could approach the podium.
With the board's permission, we will tag team this one.
Yes.
By state law, there's very little operational or policy control that the LEA exercises over a charter school. The intent behind a charter school is that they operate independently. And so we act as the LEA and we funnel money to them, but we do not have influence over their day-to-day operations.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's really important that we understand that if the vote is to have control, local control over it, that does not give us control over what happens in the school. What happens in the school is 100% up to them. There is nothing that we can vote on. There's no recourse if there's discipline issues. There's no recourse if there's another issue. All of that would have to go to the Nashville Classical Board, not to us. So to try to paint our control over them or being the one who authorizes them as having some control over their policies is just false.
All right. Other statements or questions, discussion? Mrs. Masters?
I just want to say that I feel it's important for us to remember that what we are voting on tonight is the application as presented to us, which we declined to accept their charter application. They appealed to the state. The state overturned our decision. And I just think it's important that we vote on it as presented, which still includes the issues that it had initially, which is the location and the issue of the desire to bus children to the school from different areas throughout MMPS. While I am appreciative of the school's desire to answer to those concerns now, now is not the time. The time for that would be for them to reapply for a different charter application. I hate to think that we're going to be placed in this position of, amending sort of on the fly according to what we're told the desire is. I would prefer for us to be able to work together in a more transparent way. So, I will be voting not to bring them under the umbrella of MMPS for the same reasons that I voted not to approve the application in the first place. And I am looking at it from that overall perspective of, while I care for all of the children in our district, I also believe adamantly that local control is incredibly important, and it's the only way that we can truly serve all of the children. And for us to allow the state to say, no, you have to take this school you didn't initially want, we are going to force back on you. I do not think that is an appropriate use of their power over our local district, regardless of what the school is now telling us they would like to change.
All right, further discussion? All right, well, I will say that Nashville Classical 1 is in my district, and there are so many different thoughts I have just about the state and about ways that we need to continue to increase our advocacy and relationship building with them. I have to be thinking about what the student impact will be, and what I don't like about ASD or state-run schools is that we don't have any access to them. We cannot support the schools, we cannot support the students or the families when they come to us because they're no longer under our portfolio. I would prefer that we bring in Nashville Classical under MMPS so that we can continue to do business with them and increase our own relationship building with their boards. Because what I will say is that when I reach out to Mr. Friedman, if I do ever have issues from a parent, he's responsive, his team is responsive, and I understand that that is coming from a privileged place because I'm on the board, but I think that's something that we maintain if they're under our control versus not being. Now, please hear me when I say that I understand that the state continues to step on our toes, but they will continue to until we convey to them who we are as a district, who we are as people, and what we represent for our students. But I just continue to think about ASD-run schools and how separate they are from us and how hard it is for us to support families when we have no connection to them. Go ahead, Mr. Little.
Yeah, this is just a tough decision, and I'll say I have a kid at Nashville Classical 1 who's attended since kindergarten, and listening to all the parents tonight, all the teachers, the support staff, I just think we got to give people a chance until they show something different. And so when I listen to Mr. Friedman and I wait for pushback on him just being a good partner, I think when we initially had this conversation, we discussed that, they didn't want it in Bellevue. And so I got a message from a council person today who said, hey, I want it in my district, which was District 20. And when I think about our academic scores, not even 2021 because the pandemic was just rough, but even some schools in Bellevue, when I look at Charlotte Park, proficiency in reading was 10.4%. And I think we got to ask ourselves, will this school help us do a better job? Will we have an opportunity to really grow kids? Because if we had 10 for every 100 pre-pandemic, how do we continue to grow and support our students academically where they can even have a chance? And so I really appreciate Ms. Tyler's passion. I think you ask really difficult questions. I got to ask, though, do we have trust in a leader who has never shown to be disingenuous with his relationship with the district thus far with different MNPS buildings, in his response to how he wants to proceed with not going to Brookmead, because as they stated, it's no community support in Bellevue.
Well, and I would be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge that as a district and as a board, I am urging us to stop pitting schools against each other. If we want to support one school and bring it under our portfolio, we don't have to make comparisons. You know, I do appreciate that parents want the best for their children, but it makes me cringe when people talk about 37208 and they talk about Jones, but I see my son and his peers getting all the resources that they're getting, even though they are not getting those resources in their community. So we don't know what family life is like in one area of town than it is in another, and the idea that we want to pit choice schools against each other, or even zone schools against choice schools, is just inappropriate. And I mean, we are all welcome to our different thoughts, but we've got to stop pitting parents against teachers, pitting schools against each other. It just does not benefit the conversation for students. We're not moving the needle for all students when we do that. And so I just want us to continue to focus this conversation around whether or not Nashville Classical 2 will be under the MNPS portfolio, or whether it's part of the state portfolio. We'll go Mrs. Elrod and then Mrs. Bush.
Thank you. So I guess first in response to us not being able to have oversight of them if they are underneath the state instead of us, we don't currently have much oversight, as just stated by legal. That's the intention of charter schools, is that they work independently. So again, there's not really that much of a difference whether they're with us or without us, except for potentially some said work together that they would say maybe could happen. But I cannot point to us having that currently with the current location. And today's examples of not having the location down correctly and changing that after they've had 2 opportunities. They had the first time to apply, which was denied. They had the second time to apply. Both of those were with the current location, which they still continue to say was the right location, though many options and many times they were told were the incorrect location. And then the state approved them under that location. And then today, the day that we have to vote on it, is the day that we hear from them about how they want to have a new location. That does not show to me an example of collaboration, nor of work together, nor of true good planning, which would be necessary and should be required and thought of. So for me, it would not be a wise idea for us to include them within our own group. We do not, again, have much oversight of them, whether they're with us or whether they are with the with the state. But it is worthwhile to say that under the spirit of local control, it is not good for us to have the state to approve them against our will, in essence, and then us still take them. The state needs to have that control if that's what the state chose. It is not within any of MNPS's strategic plans or visions currently to have any growth in that area, whether it's in Abigail, Mrs. Tyler's district, to whether it's in the preferred area that has been mentioned to us now of Cherokee Park, Sylvan Park, or North Nashville. There's no plan for those schools. Now, of course, currently, it should be only a discussion about what's inside of that Brookmead location, though I understand that there is some want to change that. But we have no strategic plans or any wants, as we have stated, as a MNPS group and as a board, to have growth in that area. Additionally, we've had no plans for that in North Nashville, which is where they would be pulling students from. Those schools are currently going through an incredible amount of work to regroup and to have the reimagined work being done, and they need to stay as a consistent community and have the resources that are now provided to them, and without being pulled from enrollment. So my hope is that we do not have them underneath the MNPS umbrella, and that it is with the state, as that is who approved them.
All right, Mrs. Bush.
Yes, I am going to support Nashville Classical to hopefully be included into our MNPS circle of schools. We've had over half of charter schools to be denied by the board and be approved by the state. And we also have had most of the charter schools to be included as far as oversight. So this is no different than any other schools that we've denied and the state have come back and approved them. my schools, this very board denied my KIPP schools in Antioch for oversight. And that really, really bothered me, that oversight means everything. It doesn't mean that it's going to financially give us a gain. It means that we can be able to have relationships with our parents, relationships with our students, relationships with our teachers. And that means a whole lot when you have a community where a school lies, that you have that type of support. So I will support this because I think that having any school, it doesn't matter if it's a charter school, it's a traditional school, to be included in oversight. I keep thinking in my head when the state looks at this board and looks at the local level and how we're making decisions, we keep coming back pitting charters against traditionals and charter and all the negative, comments about charter schools. These are our kids, and it's about choice. We heard tonight about choice, how parents have come up to the podium and our kids have come up to the podium and talked about their success and talk about how it's changed their lives, and we just can't ignore that. I won't ignore that. So it's about choice. Every child is not built for a traditional school. Every child is not built for a charter school. The bottom line of it is that oversight is always important. It's about trying to come together and bridge this gap that we have been, this bad cloud that's been over this board about charters versus traditional and how we handle the inclusion. So I'm going to vote on this to have Nashville Classical to hopefully be a part of MNPS. Thank you.
Any board member that has not spoken? If not, I'll call for the question. All right, Ms. Tyler, would you mind restating your motion?
I move to deny local authorization of Nashville Classical 2.
All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. All right, denial 4. All against? All right, 5. Motion fails. I will entertain a new motion. I move to accept Nashville Classical 2 under the MNPS portfolio. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. 5-4. All against? 4 against. No abstentions. Motion passes. All right, with that, we'll move on to a board committee report from Ms. Pupo Walker with governance.
Thank you, Chairwoman Buggs. We had a very good governance meeting today where we were able to approve 1, 2, 3, how many, Paul? I'm sorry, I'm just, hang on a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 policies. Thanks to Dr. Severe's work, and so those are all online and can see those. And then we deferred on one related to interscholastic athletics. And then we had a good conversation about whether to join NSBA now that they have left, now that TSBA has withdrawn from NSBA, and we're going to continue to have that conversation and gather more information about that. Looking forward to that conversation. That completes my report.
All right, with that, we'll begin with announcements with our student board members. Anjali, we'll begin with you this week.
Okay. I'll start my announcements by reaching a thank you to Dr. Battle for attending the Mayor's Youth Summit last Wednesday. As for the MNPS students and teachers who also attended and engaged in quality discussion that will ultimately be conveyed to Mayor John Cooper. Seniors college applications for specifically early action are due on the 15th. Make sure you turn that in, and also make sure to turn in your FAFSAs. I want to remind everyone that Veterans Day is on Thursday, so we won't have school. I also want to extend a thank you to those who have served our country. Vaccinations, please get your COVID vaccinations if you haven't done so already, as well as your flu shots as we are moving towards flu season. And then I want to say thank you for a great public participation This is my and Ebenezer's second public participation, with the first being our very first board meeting in September. As a student, I don't really get to see much of the behind the scenes. And with that, I want to share something as student board members. Ebenezer and I got to attend the Chamber of Commerce meeting 2 Fridays ago, where we got to actually share a lot about MNPS. And with that, I am a proud student of MNPS, and the quality discussions that we've had during public participation only highlights that. I learned that our teachers are working so effortlessly, faculty, staff, and I can't thank you enough for that. I wouldn't be here without the people who are sitting behind this table, without the people who have helped me go through all my years. I started as an MNPS student at Charlotte Park, and now I'm about to graduate high school. And I just want to say thank you to the teachers who have worked effortlessly through this pandemic, who have worked effortlessly regardless of the thank yous that they so much deserve and don't receive enough credit. And with that, I just want to say thank you to MNPS, and thank you for creating an environment that is welcoming for teachers, for students, an environment that emphasizes on mental health for not only students, but also for its teachers, faculty, and staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Tyler?
So I have given the student survey to our middle schools and high school. I'm excited to get them back to see what any write-in answers are going to say. And I will compile those and then create a final survey that will be pushed out to the entire community that will give us our final, hopefully, final responses for what we think the name of the new high school should be.
Thank you. Mrs. Masters?
Sure. So I would typically tell you what the PAC is up to, but our secretary, Dawn, did a fantastic job with that. So lots of exciting things happening with Parent Advisory Council. We are still looking for a few cluster reps. So although we have PAC reps from every school, we're still missing a few cluster reps, and unfortunately 2 of those are Maplewood and Hunters Lane, which are mine. So come on, y'all. I know, I've been trying. And then I also, I wanted to mention for a moment the BEP, the state funding formula, is currently under review for how the state funds our local districts. And I attended one of those meetings in Hendersonville, and I know that Ms. Jeannie Pupo-Walker and Chair Buggs, you were there as well. I really wanted to thank NOAA for being there. One of our advocacy groups, they had a big representation. I saw some MNEA folks there. Very appreciative of everyone who drove up to Hendersonville, since we didn't actually have one of those meetings scheduled in Davidson County. And I would encourage anyone who is willing and able to continue reaching out to the state education commissioner and let her know that we would like public dollars to go into public schools for the benefit of every student, because a high quality public education is a right of every citizen. And we want to be sure that the funding stays in public education, and we also want to be sure that it is equitably distributed and it doesn't shortchange our students in our larger urban districts like Nashville. And if you have a different opinion, just don't worry about it. You don't need to reach out to her at all. It's fine. And that's the only announcements I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Masters. Mrs. Player Peters? No. All right, Mrs. Elrod.
Thank you. This week, Haywood is having their online family math nights, not night maths. Math nights. Tonight is English and Spanish, so I'm missing it. Tomorrow night is Burmese and Karen, and it's from 5:30 to 6:30. And then also tomorrow, the Cree Fall PTA, who we heard from Dr. Miley during public participation, tomorrow they have 6 students from the EL program that are graduating out of it, and they're going to have a parade for those students, and you can be outside to wave at them and encourage them at 8:20 a.m. Also announced during public announcements is, and I want to make sure I have this date right, I apologize for having some notes on my phone and some in paper, such is life, is our PAC meeting and our Parent Action Group has, at the Edmondson Branch Library, the By Design documentary being seen, along with a quick discussion, and that's going to be on November 20th at, once again, Edmondson Pike Library. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Little?
So, few things. So November 13th from 2 to 4 at McGavick High, there's going to be a free anti-violence basketball camp. Mr. Juan Adams, who is an MNPS grad and had a son who graduated from MPS who was unfortunately gunned down, is doing the program. So if you have time, if you have kids who are interested in some of the basic skills, and you're interested in anti-violence, I ask you to come. It's on Facebook, more of the details. Next Wednesday, November 17th, from 5 to 6:30 at the Hermitage Community Center, right across from the police station on Central Pike. We're going to have our first in-person community meeting where we hear from parents, teachers, and stakeholders about things that are going on that they care most about. So I'm willing to take the feedback and then come back to the district to see, as well as the principals, to see how we make situations better or expand things that they think that are going really well in the district. Want to say thank you to the parents and the teachers who have just made a huge sacrifice to attend tonight's meeting. I saw a lot of them sitting in the crowd with kids. As I have a kid, and having a kid here between 5 and 7, you know, a lot of times they get hungry, they get antsy, and just hearing from parents, teachers, and even students, it warmed my heart and kept me focused on, you know, what do we really want to accomplish as a Board of Education. So I appreciate you guys. And then this month, just doing school tours. And so I had a chance to go by Stanford Montessori and meet with their students. And I had a magical time in one of the classrooms, going by Hermitage, McGavick High, and Donaldson. And if there are other schools, I call it the District 4 tour. But thank you.
All right, Mrs. Bush?
Yes, thank you. Last night, we had a great turnout at JFK. They had their STEM day at the school, and we had a lot of great students that really enjoyed all the innovative things that they saw, and they were really excited about the opportunity to be a part of such a great event. And want to thank Moves and Grooves for putting on that event. And there's going to be many, many more that's going to come into the district now that we're kind of getting back to some little normalcy. And I will be visiting more schools and making sure that activities are supported and encourage our schools to get back into that mode of celebrating and being able to get that parental involvement back again in the district. So really excited about that, and there's more to come in District 6. Thanks so much.
Mrs. Pupo, welcome.
I want to start by giving my condolences to the family of Letharius Lewis, who's a 9th grader from Hillsborough who was shot and killed since our last meeting. And it's our second Hillsborough student to be lost to gun violence this semester. Tremendously heartbreaking, and just want to remind everybody that our kids need a lot of support, and we've got to find a way to just end this gun violence. There's a second round of redistricting for our districts. If folks want to take a look and give input, there's still time to do that. Kids 5 through 11 can get vaccinated. Vaccinate your child. MNPS is helping make that happen. It's National School Psychologist Week. I'm so grateful for our school psychologists who do tremendous work, really in the background, making sure that kids' needs are met, and they're such an important part of the piece of the puzzle for us. And then I want to congratulate Ebenezer and Angeli, who were filmed by CBS News a few weeks ago for a documentary, which came out this week. Was that this week? Last week? Last week. And it's a CBS News, it's online, you can stream it. It's called The Trials of Critical Race Theory. And they were in a focus group with students, did an outstanding job, very, very proud. Ebenezer made the final cut, Angeli did not, but really, really proud of his remarks. And they were all MNPS students. They had students from Girls Inc., from different programs in the district, and it was just a testament to how brilliant our students are. And I will leave it there.
Thank you. Ebenezer?
I wanted to start my announcements by mentioning that next week is National STEM Week, and I just want to give out a shout out to all the math and science teachers in the district who have been helping students in these 4 subjects. For example, I go to a magnet school, so I've had the pleasure of experiencing teachers who've been very helpful in introducing me to various subjects. I also wanted to mention that, just as Ms. Jenny Pooper-Walker said, students the ages of 5 through 11 can now get vaccinated, and certain schools have vaccinations for students, and it's available on their website, so parents should explore that option. And then finally, I want to mention Governor School applications are now open, so for my fellow rising, juniors and seniors, you can apply this week. And if you have any questions or you're interested, please contact your school counselors, or you can contact me or Angeli because she attended last year. And that concludes it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more from Mrs. Pooper-Walker. I'm so sorry. Mrs. Player Peters.
I'm so glad I love you, Jeannie. I just wanted to acknowledge Dr. Bao being interviewed by Lester Holt. I am a big fan of Lester Holt on national news and really putting us in a bright spot on the national level, coming and representing schools. And if you're having a chance to see it, please go and see it. But the fact that National News Network came and made a point to have a conversation of where our schools are going, I just want to highlight that. So go back and Google it. It's a great interview highlighting Nashville and our great education system.
And on that note, I will say, I haven't told you this, Dr. Battle, and I hope to not give you any ideas, but 2 different board chairs from across the U.S. reached out to me the very next day to ask about your contract. And I told them in no uncertain terms, no, ma'am. So I do appreciate that you had a great interview. Don't you do no more interviews. We don't need, no, ma'am. But no, really, seriously.